Let's get this party started. Let me wheel my chair up in a way that doesn't bonk my desk constantly. Howdy. We are back. As you can probably see, I have hit this model with a few more details. I had a little bit of time today, but there's a lot more to do. So I'll get that phone out of my pocket so it doesn't distract me. I hit it with some Tesseract glow for the gloppy stuff down here inside the creepy skull eyes. Inside these pipes where there's little holes. And then we covered over the boils with our epic streaking grime last night. So I hit those again. Basically, they got Averland Sunset in the middle of some of them. And then something I'm becoming increasingly a fan of, Nurgle's Rot. Nurgle's Rot is a technical paint. I haven't used it that much, which is a little bit strange given the fact that I have a Death Guard army, but I only picked this up recently. And what's nice about it, I think you could probably see this, is it's got a glossy sheen to it. So these boils here, let's see if I can, and the light, you can sort of see that it's got that gloss. So against this really strong, matte finish, it's really nice. It looks like the kind of slop that should come out of a boil. So that's pretty gnarly. So I got all the way around this pipe here. It's got some of that sloppy stuff. Boils all over the place. I didn't do a perfect survey of the whole thing, but I got a lot of it. But what I'm going to do tonight is just bring back more details out of the model. So I might hit these skulls with a little bit of Dawnstone, just dry brushing it on there. I'll probably do a little bit of dry brushing on these gutsy pipe things. These have little boils in them too. I gotta hit those. Lots of little things I gotta hit. And then these long spikes, I mean, you can tell that they're good, but they stand out a bit much in terms of contrast. Now this whole thing is streaked up. So these will get some typhus corrosion and some Rhiza Rust, which will also, I'm probably just going to hit the very edges of these guys. With the Rhiza Rust, so that'll give it like a nice super bright orange that's sort of just haloed outside of the main piece. But to start, I still have, because they've been sitting on my desk the whole time, the lingering 4 bells. So what I'm going to do to start there is dry brush some lead belcher on there. Dry brushing will dry fast, which is nice. And it'll also get me up to a metallic sheen before I do anything else. So if I want to rust them, and I probably do, that'll be good. It'll also just kind of be a base because there is detail on these. This has the sort of 3-dot Nurgle jammy jam going on it. This has a similar one, but with a decent amount of recessed stuff. And this one has the flies on it. So at least if I can get that base metal on there, then I can quickly go in there and if my hands don't shake too much. And I don't think that they will because I just took a nap. Yes, old man took a nap. I don't think this Earl Grey is gonna give me the shakes too much. So that's kind of the game plan. I'm gonna be dipping into a lot of different tiny amounts of little colors. There's a couple pressure valves on here, which are going to need some red and maybe some white in the background. Maybe not white. We'll see. So yeah, there'll be some red going in there. I don't think I'm going to patina the warp block bronze stuff. I thought about it. I may in the end, after I get the spikes done, come in with a little bit of Rhiza Rust on those, just so that you've got these little motes of I was so terrified of this paint when I first got it. They're like, yeah, it's for rust. It's bright orange, but when you dry brush it a little bit, it looks pretty solid. And then maybe, because I am dipping around to a bunch of different brushes, I've got this Biologus Putrifier. There's a ton of tiny little bottles on his back racks, which I don't know. I presume everyone thinks this, but it definitely looks like a little kid dressing up like his dad for a work day in a suit, like Mortarion with the wings. I think that's metaphorically what that's supposed to be. Wings of Death. But yeah, he's like a little mini Mortarion. He's dressing up like dad for work. So if I'm going to be in a bunch of little paints with a bunch of little brushes, I might as well keep this guy aside. Because then I can just hit bottle by bottle There's a couple skulls on here. So awesome that they use skulls as grenades. So yeah, I'll keep this aside, and that way I'll make some headway on this guy. This will be the next model that I do in full. Looked up the base size. This guy uses a 40mm base. I almost put him on a Plague Marine base. Oops. But then I remembered he's on a slightly big one. Not as big as Typhus is on a 50. It's definitely bigger. But yeah, about 20 minutes ago, I stuck this guy to the base, and I almost put him on the wrong size, but persevered. Let me make sure I'm actually coming through here. Check my levels. Hello. All right, we're good. All right, so let's dry brush. I will use my big dry brush on these guys. Get this dude a shake. I'll hit these guys first, just so they got a little breathing room to dry. And if I do decide to rust them, then I'm good to go. This dry brush could be cleaner, but I did frisk it a little bit. And once again, if you're new here, I use craft board. I just cut it up in little chunks. I find it a little bit better than, I do go over the paper towel, but to start, I just go on some craft board because it smooths the brush around a little bit better. So here we go. This will obviously just leave a decent amount of the baseline black present in the recessed spots. And it naturally gives a brushed metal look. And it's funny because before I was literally with the tyrant, the night tyrant that's behind me that I first did this. And someone was kind enough to recommend, hey, you're complaining about all this metal work you got to do. I was thinking, hey, I should have sprayed this guy metal. I was like, nah, I'm watching you stream. Just dry brush it. Got through so much stuff fast that way. And speaking of speed, you know, essentially, this guy, if you put him next to the other guy, this guy's metallic now. So I can just leave him off to the side to do his thing. That. I decided I'm definitely leaving these bells not glued on. They're excellent little dangly Christmas ornaments. I may make special ornaments around Christmas. We'll see. Yep, so just getting in here, not worrying too much about it. You want to, at least I want to, I feel weird giving advice. I'm so new to this, but I try to make sure with things like these chains that I go one direction and then I go the other direction. Obviously, while you're doing it, if you're losing little pieces of bristle, these chains are all spiked and have holes in them, so it's not the safest work. You just want to pay attention. You should always have tweezers around. I do, in case you need to tweeze off a couple pieces, but you don't want to leave a bunch of fuzzy brush material in there. There we go, nice and quick. Brushed metal. And I would guess that, like, I'll probably hit some of these with a little bit of Warplock bronze. But at least I've got this metally base on them. You know what? They're all rusty. Yeah, they might all just go together like this. Check this guy out again. Strange feeling he's a little on the dark side. There you go. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4. I get the inside a little bit. I'll have to hit the other ones too. They don't need a ton, but just getting around the edge. You can sort of see just getting around the edge a little bit. Means that if you get a low angle on them, it will just be pure black in there. Get those other guys too. I think there's only one other one with an open bell on it. All right, so these, well, 4 of these that have been sitting there the entire time are now metalling. Get inside this. Just give it a little scooch in there. The main things you just want to, yeah, look at that. That's good. Just get in there a bit. Looking nice. Looking nice. So next, just get a bunch of this out of here in case I need to use it again. I probably should get in the habit of immediately dropping this guy in a wash, but I don't know. I'm not sure that it matters. It does matter. It just doesn't matter that much. Alright, so lead belcher, I could set you aside. That guy'll dry in a minute. I'll just swap him out for a different one. And I reuse these things a lot. I just finally cut another couple out. They're also not too bad if you just need something with a little bit of body to it. If you want to like spray some primer on and like test some paints out and see how they'll look, it's not too bad for that. They're also foam on the inside, so you can get in there with a tool and make some like divots. So I did this a little bit when I was getting started. I would take like Death Guard green and spray it on there, but after I had like done some grooves in there for texture, and you could test washes. Not the worst thing. This stuff is not cheap per se, but you can buy it in bulk and it's very reusable. So I just bought a big thing of a bunch of them. I used to have some behind here because I was taking photos in there. So I just had it boxed in kind of like a light box. But if you get a couple, I don't know, foot by a foot ones of these and you just cut them up, they'll last you forever. So I'll swap that guy in. Go to Dawnstone. Do we do that next? Do we do that next? I don't know that we do. Because I know my typhus corrosion is going to need to dry. So maybe I will hit it next. Trying to do a decent order of operations here. Bronze. Where is my buddy Typhus? You're out here somewhere. There you are. It always looks a little greener than I remember. Alrighty. So I'll hit all these prongy things. I don't think I'm going to hit the tubes. The tubes get enough interesting contrast. Like this guy will be covered in boils and I don't have to worry about him. I will hit this pipe. Big pipes. And I will hit that grate. But I don't need to globally cover anything. Actually, I'm finding that Q-tip actually works just fine for these. So I will hit around a couple of the bolts here, a couple here, and just dab it. I used to brush it on, and if I'm going to tiny spaces, I'll do that, but I find dabbing it lets a little bit better amount of the underlying metal get through. In the case of like Typhus's scythe, I just made that thing like, I mean, you can still see there's a sheen there, but I just glopped it. I think my best example of this is probably the dude with the huge cleaver. The dude with the huge cleaver. He's gotten, yeah. This one, very rusty. I actually went back with a toothpick and picked some of the stuff away so some of the metal would get back through, but the first coat I did at Typhus with that guy was just hefty. Hefty. Make sure I don't put my thumb back in this thing. So by dabbing it, you're getting a little bit of imperfection. Oh yeah, I'll get that hinge. There's no way that hinge is looking good. That thing's going to be blorted. It's a little latch over here. A little down here. And I'll just be somewhat surgical when I get to the dry brushing. But having a couple spots thick, a couple spots thin. I don't know if you can really see this, but obviously you can see that it's taking the reflection out, but it's clumpy how it dries. It really has like very fine particly stuff in it, and it gives it a really rough texture. So when you finally dry brush over it, it's not uniform. It's not uniform at all. It's chunky. It's almost like a super, super, super fine basing material. It really works well. It looks pretty gnarly when it's wet. I will say that it does have one of those oops scary did I screw this whole model up elements to it. All right, and then these I'm gonna go fairly heavy out by the edge, by where like the blade pointy part is, because these are gonna get a lot of Rise of Rust on them. And then I'll just sort of splotch it elsewhere. There we go. I think that typhus corrosion is like worth its weight in gold. If you're picking a faction that needs any amount of distressing, and frankly, a lot of them do. I mean, I know a lot of people make these super pristine looking armies, but especially for things like vehicles and stuff like that, having this stuff around is a godsend. All right, yeah, get that all nice and nasty up by that loop and that super hook. One more dab of that on there. Actually filled that with a little bubble, so I just blew it out of there. And just give that a dab, and I think, yeah, I got one more. And then I said I was going to get that big pipe down there too. Stuff dries so nicely. On Plague Marine melee weapons, it's just absolutely nasty. It's just like, man, that looks like tetanus shot city. I'm just rotating it around to make sure that I'm getting a decent amount of coverage on these. Those look pretty good. So for my last trick, that's starting to look grimy. You can see how you're still getting some reflection in plenty of spots, but a bunch of it has gotten taken down. It's clumpy. Clumpy but fine, gently. I don't know that I'm going to get all the pipes. I'll get them in some spots. These two connections might need some, but I'm not going to do that right out the gate. Can always do another pass, buddy. Always. You don't need to cover everything. Just let it hit a few spots to add some drama. And obviously the look of this doesn't come to its full fruition until, oh yeah, I gotta get all around those guys. Actual rusted out holes. This is one of those technical paints where it's okay to be a little scared in the first step, because everything comes back around in the second step. All right, so those can now dry a little bit. So it does dry fast. It dries pretty darn fast. Alrighty. You know what? I'm still on it because I gotta rust my bells. Bells. I think I will actually leave these pretty much this kind of metal. I don't think I'm gonna bronze them. I think they will look cool, a decent amount of rust on them, look kind of sinister, and if I do want to hit these raised sections a little bit, I can. I don't have to. I have a funny feeling these are going to look pretty rad, just rusted out. And now I'm just going to set that guy standing up straight Scooch a couple things over. My space gets continually filled up by this project. Dab, dab, dab. Dab, 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 dab. And when you sort of sponge it on rather than brush it, I find that it's like the act of pushing and pulling, you leave less symmetrical blotches of all that material that you're taking along for the ride. So it looks a little more organic, to my terrible eyes at least. If I believe it, it's fine, right? There we go. Dash that through there. Grab the end. Typhus corrosion. I love you. All the way down that little sort of side angle bit. Oh yeah, that'll look good. I don't know how I'm going to sit that down, but I'll find a way. Sit you up against my snips. Get the chain first. Yeah, don't have to hit the whole thing. Just hit it pretty thick where you do. One thing you do want to think about is you don't want to get the, I mean, you can get it in the recesses if you feel like it. But because you're going to dry brush over it next and you're taking advantage of how sticky or at least textured the stuff is, you don't really want to drip it in. You want to get it on the elevated parts of the model because that's exactly where the rise is going to go over it. And the rise of rust, you don't want to do too thick. And it's absolutely going to scream at the edges. So any of these spikes are just going to get laden with it. Edge of a blade, those arrow spikes that are on there, all of those are going to get like the most amount of that blistering orange color. So give them a good place for those things to land. The elevated parts. All right. Now that's good. I was going to do Dawnstone next. I'll grab a smaller dry brush. What I think I'll do, not a lot, not a whole lot, is I think I'll hit these pipes a bit. They have a decent amount of like ribbing that's showing, but Dawnstone's pretty light. I'll hit these skulls a little bit, maybe just on the top left side, a little bit of lighting going on. I'll hit these guts, and that should be pretty good. I may, careful, it's still not dry. I may hit some of the metal bits as well, but I don't think they're going to really need them. Or at the very least, it's probably a little too early to worry about that. Maybe I'll use my medium-sized guy. Maybe I will. Yeah, I think I should. Get a new piece of craft board. Leave that open. This stuff is just muddy. A lot of times what I like to do is do a circle, do another circle, do another circle. It's actually darker than I thought it would be. To the point where like you can see it lighten up over a certain amount of space. Make sure you don't have any clumps on it. Find a good place to actually rest your hands. And there we go. I don't even know if there's anything on here. I might have to go lighter than that. Oh. Maybe I've got nothing on it. I think I don't. One of those famous last words moments. Then I hit it again. There's too much on it. There we go. Just a little bit on there. Just to sort of lighten it up on the left side of each skull. Yeah, that works. Just hitting these guys the tiniest amount. Get a little bit of pop. These are ribbed, but they're not, the recesses aren't very deep. And so I'm sort of prepping this guy more than anything else, that I think I'm going to hit him with another wash. But now as that goes in, the raised spaces will be highlighted a bit more. It sounds SMRT smart to me. Don't know if it is, but it sounds that way. You do want to be careful when you're going around something like, what is this neon stuff called again? Tesseract Glow. That if you hit him with a dry brush color really close to him, something like Dawnstone that's very mellow, you'll take a lot of that radiance right out of it. I've absolutely done that before. I think I did it on, yeah, this guy. I had to go back over these eyeballs on the side because I hit him. They can stand to be darker. I hit him with Tesseract Glow, and I dry brushed the thing to bring some elevation to it, and it just shut off all the neon. Good lesson. Very good lesson. I can hit this thing a little bit. A couple little spots don't hurt. In theory, if I was really solid at this, there'd be a lot of places on here that I would be hitting in this right now. I get my lighting down. But most of what I'm doing is trying to make sure that some details pop a little bit more, stand out. Because the model as a whole, I've done pretty dark. Pretty darn dark. Alright, I think the typhus needs to dry a bit more, so be wary. But I absolutely disappeared pretty close to all the flies that were on here. I gotta figure out something to do about them because they're gone. I painted them black and against a much lighter backdrop when it was just Gilliman flesh. Stuck out because they were black. Then I drenched this whole thing, and now it's dark. So we gotta do something about that. Drink some tea to get some caffeine. What is a good color to make them stick out as flies? Obviously, I may still have to dab a little wash on them so that the texture comes out and so that the edge, they're just barely lifted off the model. Barely. I'm gonna go with, it's a little weird, but not too weird. I'm gonna go with Xandri Dust. It's light. I don't think I want colorful flies. Obviously, if I wanted it to scream out, I could go Tesseract Glow. I could actually go Rise of Rust. That would be like danger. Caution tape. I could go blue. But I think by picking something that's like in these earthy tones, but it's just light, I could probably get a lot of what I am looking for. This brush was not exactly washed as good as it could have been. All right, let's do this. You can see all that Tesseract Glow on there. Actually, I got in there with a Q-tip and actually stirred it. There was so much medium, so much pigment on the bottom of the pot that just wasn't coming up no matter how much I shook it, that I was like, to heck with this. I'm gonna get in there, I'll lose a little bit, but I basically got in there with the Q-tip, stirred it all around, and then turned the Q-tip over, squeezed a bunch of stuff out. Not my proudest moment, but it wasn't terrible either. All right, pick this guy up the same way. Make my little spot of Xandri dust. Xandri dust is a really nice paint. I haven't used it very often, but I should use it a lot more. Quite specifically because it works very well with like Death Guard Green as a counter, and I've sort of done something ish close to it with Wraithbone and then Seraphim Sepia over it in a lot of places. But every time I use it for tiny little details, I like it a lot. I like it a whole lot. Is that even in focus? That's reasonably focused. You guys can see what I'm doing. Yeah. So these will almost certainly need a little bit of wash afterwards. But you can already see those two guys popping out, which is good. And now, if I do decide that I want to add some color, I'll be adding color to something that's already coming out. There you go. There you go, champ. I like that. Make sure I get a high enough angle here. It's funny, this is like a level of detail that I didn't even see on models until I started. And part of it is that the model's so big that you have these bigger wide open spaces. The details are easy to have pop out. Man, my poxwalkers have all manner of belts, buckles, gun harnesses that I never touched. Just didn't see them. Just straight up staring at the model for hours on end. And like, if you think I'm slow, when I got started, I was mega slow. I just never saw it. Not till much, much later. I still pick epoxies off of this shelf and go like, oh, that model's so cool. I just painted over that part. It's all context. It's all what's around it. So, with this Xandri dust as a starting point, I creep around looking for my tweezers. I actually don't need these headphones, do I? Yeah, I have one little brush hair sort of sticking up. I'm gonna get rid of these headphones because it's getting warm in here. And I'm not listening to anything. Magnifique. So with that Xandri dust as a base, I can now hit them with a color of a wash that like I could use like green wash on them. And at least it would still sort of sing out. And all around the edge of these, because they are lifted just a little bit, where you get a little bit more wash to stick, you sort of get this nice little edge because there's this light color behind it. At least in theory, that's how I think it works. I'm pretty sure I'm right on that one, though. All right. All these flies. All these flies. There we go. This model's definitely one of those how do you know when you're done models. Like, for real artists, it's like a true dilemma. For me, it's not much. If I get tired of a model, I just stop and maybe I'll come back to it another time. But so many fiddly bits and so many opportunities for layering on this thing that you could just keep going and going and going. It's something I work at because I'm not lazy, but like a lot of times I feel like I'm done routinely, and I'm really not. And I take another look at it, and I'm not. Like that tyrant, that one's pretty darn close to done. Like Typhus is, well, no, I say that, but he still needs some basing material on him. Like I get eerily close. I do have the basing dilemma, plague. I gotta base a lot of my stuff. but I don't mind it. I do get back to a lot of my stuff. And I feel like part of what I'm doing is not racing, but I do want to have 2,000 point army put together. And to do that, you got to break a few eggs. That's not how the metaphor works, but momentum's important. Very, not very, but I'm a reasonably busy human being. And I've learned enough about myself where, like, if I can keep momentum going, I will get 2,000 points done. But if I overthink one model, I'll never find the end zone, ever. Like, I've made my peace with the fact that the base of this, I'm not going to get right to it. Just not. I think what I may end up doing is literally just washing the base and then doing some dry brush and some little detail. Like, I'll hit all those boils so that they match these. But I think the base for the base is probably just going to be like, I don't know, Nuln Oil, Agrax, something like that. It is a cool base. It's got a lot of stuff going on. All the metal that attaches the whole thing to the ground is part of the base. Got that great, got all these little boils and stuff. But I don't think I'm going to fuss all that much over the base. And I do that a lot when I'm working on models. I'll like pre-game decide. So you can see how those flies actually stick out now. Like, those guys were all missing before. Now they got a happy home. And now I'm just casing the joint for missing flies. And I know I've missed some. That's okay. But I think I got a lot of them. And her theme can always come back. Yeah, that's pretty good. I don't think I need any more Xandri dust. Though we may be coming to the point where I start going back and forth between this guy and Gus. Gus, Biologus. Because now I'm going to start picking some fancy colors. Fancy for me, at least. Alright, so if I wanted to, let me step over here and grab a couple more colors. Alright. I know I need some amount of red, some Mephiston red. It is. I don't even know what Night Gloom is for. It's probably for patina, but it's a nice blue. I've got Neil Oxide. That's nice and blue. That'll stand out. I have Avalanche Sunset. I know I will be using some amount of Wraithbone on the skulls on Gus. So that's a pretty good place to start. Pretty good place to start. I want to hit. See if this is dry yet. How you feeling? How you feeling, buddy? You do feel dry. I won't be able to resist. It's gonna be. Yeah, it's rise of time. I'm gonna get a lot of contrast out of this Rise of Rust. And it's one of my favorite times of model painting, so I'm just going to jump to that. A, because I want them, but B, a lot of these little details that I'm talking about are pretty colorful. and I'm already going to be paving in with an absolute shocker color. So it makes sense for me to sort of get that orange on this model first, so I can add my other colors with some amount of context. Like that valve, yeah, that's going to get some red, maybe get some white in the back. Some other little bits, those flies will get something. I'm sort of tempted to give them like a bright green wash. Maybe a red wash. Red wash might be good. But this rust I want to get not out of the way, but my inner 12-year-old loves this phase and won't be denied. Oh yeah, look at that. It's just bam. How to ruin your model in one easy step. Can't resist the rise of rust. You can, I don't know if the mic's good enough to pick that up, but you can actually hear how scratchy it is. How itchy and scratchy it is. Which also helps when you're dabbing the typhus corrosion, because more of the rise of rust will hit in those spots. Oh yeah, we're gonna make you rusty. Hello, Russell. Oh, that's chunky up there. Chunky territory. Super light touch with this stuff. It is strong stuff. It will absolutely just snuggle up on those edges. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but it's absolutely gripping where the typhus corrosion is, and then it gives this much lighter treatment where the corrosion is not. Really cool stuff. Like the typhus corrosion is about that texture, maybe more than anything else. I am learning over time that you can always do more dry brush passes. I get very anxious about like, oh, where's the color coming? And then I'll dip too much paint in, and then I'll, you know, crazy person makeup it. And you can always just keep brushing. More stuff will keep coming off. It'll get there. Yeah, this is like a lot. I should be very careful. Gently, yeah. But now it's singing. Still got to go gentle though. And all those raised spots are just going to gobble this up. Glorious. Absolutely glorious. Got this little bit of clotting that happens with ye old typhus corrosion. Oh, good lord, that's a lot. That's a lot. Danger. I find where the worst clumps are on these things are on the outside edge. So a lot of times when I go over a paper towel, that's obviously not paper towel, but it's in the shot, I'll turn and roll it so that I'm at least wiping heavily on the outer edge of the thing, because quite often one of those things, you'll get a little glob on the outside edge of this, and as it bumps the side of something, total smear. Total schmear. Yeah, that's a good chunk of it. Yeah, it's bright. It just Rise of Rust Night at the Apollo. Look at that. Yeah. A little hard to get in here, but thankfully, if you got a decent amount of hand control while you're flailing wildly, it gets done. One, two, three. Oh, there's the fourth one. A little twist on here. This is going to be heavy. Gently. I'll think out loud on it as I'm doing my first few strokes on here with a new glob of Rise of Rust. Just remind myself that, like, just added some on. Take it easy. Defend yourself against yourself. One more. Yeah, this brush is kind of clumpy. I don't think I have to. I was thinking I might have to switch down. Yeah, there's a big blob of it. Might have to switch up to the bigger one, but I don't think I'll have to do that. Obviously, be reasonably careful as you're getting closer to the edges of stuff that isn't metal. It's not going to kill you to get a little over there. And you should have a small enough amount of Rise of Rust on the brush where it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But I don't want to paint the ceramic parts of this orange. A little bit nearby just kind of makes it look like you got a halo of rust around one spot. That's okay, but do be careful. Yeah, so now those, let's see if you can see there's a decent amount of rust on those guys, and that'll be complemented by, actually I gotta get in that little nook. There we go. Look down on all these, look on the bottoms of them. All the angles. All right, that'll be complemented when these guys get rust. Got that camera on there. Be very light touch with things like these chains, because as I said before, they've got all those spikes on them. So the contrast difference you're going to get on those super raised spots, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be hefty. So it's really easy to accidentally be a little too heavy-handed. I can hang my ornaments. So cool. I hope they still stick with all this glop in them. Yeah, they do. Such a cool model. Good job, model. You win this one, Games Workshop. There we go. You just always want to be thinking about, when you're brushing on rust effects, the angles, so that you really are capturing a decent amount of the edge where it makes sense and not where it doesn't. So, you know, in this case, obviously this chain I'm going to get tons of no matter what I do. But it's kind of nice that it makes like the little ring at the end of this thing pop out a bit. These bolts pop out. Pops out a lot more where the typhus is than where it isn't. Cool stuff. It doesn't need to be symmetrical at all. All right, more bells, more bells, more bells. Man, Nurgle can never have enough bells. There we go. A little more on here. It's a weird texture. Weird texture paint. You never get used to it. There we go. Actually hurting my finger because of those spikes. Yeah, so in a case like this, where this little circular raised part is, I don't want to get all the way around it like I would if I was like trying to dry brush for elevation. Don't want to do that. I've intentionally put the typhus corrosion just in like a fifth or a quarter pie piece there. And I really just want to emphasize that and leave that part clean because it's not rusted. That's not the effect that I'm going for over there. A little piece of glitter on it. Typhus glitter. Point being, rust effects are different than dry brushing to like just bring out highlights. You want to really emphasize the spots where your base coat of rust is. It gives you a lot of contrast. And it looks right. It looks like something should look if it was rusty. You shouldn't get a lot of that oxidation on the spot that isn't corroded at all. Well, that goes without saying, but I certainly screwed it up for a while. Do you fit in there, Hook? I may actually have to floss the eye holes on these a little bit. Oh, you fit a little better in there. Yeah, everybody's hanging out. Everybody's hanging. Both directions. Yeah, it's sticking nicely to that bonus texture we got. And of my thumbs, but whatever. So this is another case. I don't want to broadly stroke over this whole orb thing. I want to just kind of get around it. Because in the middle I have this nice spot where nothing's corroded. I want to keep that. I'm going to be a little bit more surgical here. Rusty, but not rusty everywhere. In this case, I've only hit pretty much half the thing. So I'm gonna just flick in the spots that it makes sense. Get you a little dab more. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full. As I was saying before, you can get a little bit around it. You can get a little bit of stuff near it, but don't do a ton. Like, I don't want to turn all of this shiny spot, that shiny spot orange. These are not traffic cones. This is rust. We got principles. All right. So, get in there a little bit. Get in there a little bit. Get in there a little bit. Once again, you find angles when you look again. Oop, oh, knocking my bells off because I'm so excited. Get in there and hang, buddy. That is a sticky one. I do think I am going to have to floss these holes out a little bit. You get any amount of paint in them and they just don't hold quite the same way. Well, dope. That's pretty cool. I don't know if this is a great idea, but we'll try this. You can see the bells just hang off of it. Turn it this way. See the rust on it? Anyway, still got more rust to do, but I figured I'd show and tell. All right, I can take the bells off now. Got them to fit. They're cool. I gotta manhandle this model again. Like a one-trick pony. What do? I do rust. And I do it mediocre. Boy, is it hella fun. It is crazy looking at this. You know, piece of craft board, what it's going through. Man, you want contrast, that bright a color, certainly give it to you. It'll serve you well. It's super bright, super bright. Do not cross. That hinged nicely. That thing's got to be rusty. Yeah, we're getting right in there. I don't think I need to hit this too much. Maybe just make sure these bolts get, yeah, a little brightened up. And I'm going to run through dry brushes. I know that for sure. Definitely going to run through dry brushes. Bigger models I do. Tiny little guy, you're just like, nee, 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 nee. You get to this size. And... all right, I think I have one more big old pipe. Yeah, I do have one more big old pipe out here. The dry brush fiesta continues. Scooch that out. There you go. Oh yeah, got a lot in there. All right, keep rolling. Yeah, making nice and rusty. I got to get around. There's actually like rusted out holes in there. Those I got to hit for realsies. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good look for you. Definitely focus on edges where it makes sense. In this case, I'm going on the left and right side a lot more. Not worrying too much about the top. There we go. Looking rusty. Definitely tetanus shot city. I'm going to dab a little bit more on here, or a lot more. Easy there, buddy. Easy there. Hi-ho, silver. I'll hit these things a little bit up here. Not a ton, just in a couple spots. I don't have to go crazy with the typhus on them, though I may need some. May not actually stick all that well. May need some. Oh, that's hefty. That was heavy. This is the point in the operation where the Q-tips come out. Yeah, that's all right. Just brush it out a little bit. Gently. I'm just trying to hit some of these bolts and a little bit of edge. Just a few bolts here and there, nothing crazy. The spots that I really hit with the typhus corrosion, those I want to look like they're absolutely falling apart. Everywhere else, it's just a chance to sort of poke a little bit of color into this grimy situation. Relatively rusty. Relatively rusty. Try to find a couple more little spots. These spots on the bases. And because I haven't hit these spots of the base with that typhus corrosion first, I'm now going over spots with no typhus corrosion on them, just to be super clear. The nice thing is they get just like a light dusting of this because there's less stuff to stick to. Just a little bit of color in there, as opposed to like where these little edges pop like crazy. I'll just get in here. Yep, just a little bit of color, a little bit of weathering. And that's a spot that I don't really like, but I can just get in there. Yeah, good job, Q-Tip. You're a good pal. So we're moving right along. Yep. Okay. Pretty good shape all the way around. Do myself a favor and put the Rise of Rust down before I go totally nuts. This guy is getting dunked. I cannot leave this Rise of Rust on this brush a minute longer because I used a lot of it and it's already drying out in there. At the very least, give this guy a good soak. Start breaking down some of that paint. But it's a dry brush. It'll live. Set this guy aside so I don't drop my elbow in it. And now, let's see, I'll do a little back and forth with some color. So, I'm going to cue up Mephiston Red, Melac Oxide. I'll try some Nighthaunt Gloom. I'm not even sure I've ever even opened this thing. Nope, I haven't. Oh, it's pretty dark. Dark and deep. It's cool. Nurgle's Rot. That's Lead Belcher. Everyone's Sunset. It's going to dip around both models where needed, and it's got to be Averland Sunset before Nurgle's Rot for these little zitty things. And we'll just keep plugging away at details. So I'm going to try to get reasonably multicolored on the Biologus Putrifier on his bottles. So I'm going to start with red. I'll start with him. We'll just go back and forth wherever we need the same color on each model. Always terrorized when I use Mephiston Red, Danger Color Red. Real easy and fine to get it all over the place on some models. Not so good on my Death Guard. At least the way I'm painting them. I love seeing people who are just like, here's my Death Guard. It's purple. It's my Ice Death Guard. It's like winter green. I love it. But that's not what I'm doing here. So I'm going to be careful. So I am just going to pick a bottle and hit it. I don't know if you can make out all the detail on these, but most of these bottles have like straps around them so that they can be tied up onto this bar. I'm not too worried about it. The straps I'm going to go over with something like snakebite leather. I don't know, some brown. I am obviously going to be careful because I'm painting a model. I'm just saying that the reason I'm doing the bright colors first is because they're going to get another pass after. There is not a lot of real estate to mess around in here. We're just going to be gentle, just dab the paint in. Barely actually doing strokes. Getting it loosened up my paint with a decent amount of water so it can just kind of fill these areas in. Because right around them, it is raised up a little bit. So you can just kind of dab it. And even if it's a little thin, even if you got to go back a second time, that's fine. You don't have to like paint it like you're painting a house. You can just get in there, give it a few dabs. The liquid will naturally, if it's loose enough, if you loosened your paint up enough, it'll find its way into the little, all the way up to the edge. Which is rad. So cool. Oh yeah, good job, shaky hands. So yeah, I'm not really trying to paint. I'm just moving the tip of the brush so it just like hugs the liquid and kind of gives it a pull. It appears to be somewhat working. There we go. That is bright red. I need a little bit more in this spot right here. That's nice. I like that. We'll find another one on this side, maybe on the bottom. So two of these bottles will be just screaming bright red. Mephiston red, if you will. And then with this same red, I'll hit the pressure gauge on the Miasmic Malignifier while the brush is still wet. There we go. Gentle dabs. There we go. Oh, I hit this guy across the way. Don't worry. He'll be covered in brown someday, bud. There we go. Eyes don't fail me now. And I've loosened this paint up quite a bit. So barely have to push it around. Barely. Yeah. Mephiston red is just like thick stuff. Lots of pigment in it. So you can thin it out quite a bit, still be pretty safe. Get all the way up the flasky part of it. Not bad. That's not bad. Get all the way up top. All right, now look at my other one. I do have a little bit of flask part to get up here. The neck of it is really what I mean. Whole thing's a flask. There we go. So I'll probably use a pretty light color for the sort of ropes that are all strapped in there. I've got a bunch of dry brush dandruff, but that's red. Set you back a bit, and then back here because I'm still on it. I got a couple of weird dials and gizmo things. And I'm going to red them. I will most likely take these down a notch with a wash after. But it's kind of cool to have some bright red in this dial. Everybody knows safety first on Mortarians. Factory floor. So he's definitely the kind of guy I'd be like, you gotta follow the OSHA regulations, and then never does it himself. He's true for thee but not for me kind of guy. All right, one more little dab in here. So I lose my grip of this model. So you can see, there's just a tiny little bit of red in there. And as I look around, I don't think there's anything else I'm going to Ronald McDonald red on here. So we sort of passed our first color between these two guys. feeling pretty good. I may at some point go back and hit those flies with a little bit of red, but I think they look kind of neat like that. If I do, it'll probably be a wash. It'll be a wash. Just be gentle. Use some self-control. All right. So, try Neolac oxide. Not very schooled in this. Not very schooled in it at all. The only time I ever used this was on Typhus and I was mixing that with glitter. It's like 4 colors of glitter, 3 colors of paint. It was an honor and a privilege. But now I'm just gonna hit this big old bottle. Oh, and this stuff is thin to begin with. Wow, is that thin? All right, so I don't even need to water that down. I don't need to water you down at all, buddy. You are gloopy. I wonder if this is shiny like the Nurgle's Rot is. Alright, it's very thin. It's awkwardly thin. It might be because it has that sheen. I do want to make sure that it does not drip all over the place. That would be sad. Yeah, this guy's going to be colorful. I've seen some pictures on Reddit of really amazing jobs done on this guy's bottle set, and they're just like vibrant all over the place. And he's just like in his grim armor. I'll probably do Tesseract Glow for his actual like injector gun thing, because that's just rad. But then like rainbow bright colors on his back. It makes him stand out. Yeah, I'm not sure I understand this paint. Not sure I understand it at all. Neolac oxide. It is wet stuff. And I can't tell if it's because it's supposed to be glossy, shiny in the end or not. But it's a pretty color. It's a very pretty color. I also love the fact that his bottles are just bursting. They're all just popping off. Once again, I'm just pushing it to the physical edges of the divot. It's in there. Another little dab, just get up the edge of the neck of the bottle. Get in a little spot where between the ropes, little string that holds it on there, and then chill the heck out. Stop messing with it. I'm not going to put another dab of this on the other side just yet. I want to try this Night Haunt Gloom first. I might actually use Rise of Rust as a paint on one of these bottles. It's so bright. Don't wanna not use it. Okay. Tea time. Tea time. I do need to think about the fact that I am on this guy, and I probably don't have that much left to do on the Malignifier. So maybe this guy, if I'm still feeling conscious, maybe he gets a bit of a run of some of the base coat that he needs. Oh, that's a beautiful color, though. Night Haunt Gloom. Certainly right. Not what I'm used to, but it's a very special application. Someone's got to wear some bright colors, just like Typhus got glitter. This guy can have very many warpy colored potions. He's the Putrifier, not me. He knows what's up. He knows what he's mixing. That is nice. I like that color. I could see why this one would be very, very popular. It's pretty. What a beautiful color that is. Oh, got some little drips coming out of it. Intentional drips. Drips as part of the model. Not just my shaky hands mistakes. Oh yeah, these bottles are gonna look sweet. Total grim color scheme on the armor, and then just these. I mean, you can already see it. The red's popping, the blues are popping. I'm gonna risk it for a brisket. I don't know if that's focusing at all. I'll just leave it. I might just cause more trouble than I need to. There we go. Yeah, it's not very sharp, but it's sharp at that height. All right, that's good. Alrighty. I could do a second one like that. That would work. I like that color a lot. Can't be stopped. Only hope to contain me. There we go. It's beautiful. What a beautiful blue. Definitely not oceanic. At all. No sea green to it. They say in film night is not blue, but it is when you paint it. There's a reason why a lot of people complain about color correction to blue in night scenes. It's like it is not technically blue, but if it makes the viewer think that it is nighttime, you probably should just do it. All right, that's cool. It's very cool. Who's next? Wraithbone for the skulls. Wraithbone. So looking on here, I've got. That's actually a shrunken head. That is looking ill. That's one of those very specific granados they throw. That one's not going to get this. That one might just get a wash of something nurgly grimy. Not that Nurgle's rot stuff. Definitely not, though. That'll take all the texture out of that thing in a heartbeat. These skulls, I think you're going to get my traditional skull treatment, which is Wraithbone, Seraphim Sepia. These don't have to be as completionist as the armor. I do need to get a little thicker than I just did it. I was way too thin. Screamed off the side of that skull. There we go. Just getting that edge. I barely can't reach it. It's so funny. It's tiny. There we go. Tiny little spot. And the Seraphim Sepia will finish that job, no problem. As I continue the Fulgrim book, I'm right at the spot of Istvan 5, Ye Old Drop Pod Massacre. Everybody's just dropped in, everybody's fighting. It is crazy how swiftly it gets to this spot in terms of number of pages. From Fulgrim going to talk to Ferrus Manus the first time, and then it's just like, yeah, that didn't go well. I don't know, in my head it's like 10 pages later they're just like drop potting in. It's more than that. You know, a couple things happened in there, but it is pretty shocking. You feel like it's going to be later in the book, and it ain't. I think part of that is they're like, hey, Korax is here, Vulcan's here. Like, oop. They don't do any of the sort of not long-winded, that sounds derogatory, but any of the like detail-rich arrival stuff. It's like, no, they're on the bridge. They're pissed. Let's do this. Very swift. So tonight, when I'm done here, and I lie down and go to bed, I read every night. I should actually get to the point where Ferris and Fulgrim square off. I'm very curious about that spot. I think I have an understanding of exactly how it's going to go down. There's a decent amount of foreshadowing in the book. It's often how it goes down, not. Ooh, that's interesting. I got a little bit of blue on my skull. Give it a wipe. Let's see. Not a ton. But anytime you're sort of mixing while you're painting white, you want to get rid of it because you'll just end up streaking that through and wrecking your white color. Find a little different spot here on my wet palette. Doesn't pull any of that blue up. Yeah, I see where I did it. Yep. Two objects are touching. In that same way, when you've got a nice loose paint, you can just dab into one little spot and it'll sort of sneak its way over if there's any wetness there. The same is true of crossing up colors, which is exactly what happened. But I'm cool with it. All right, those are 3 skulls done. I may take a little of this, just a baby amount, just get a little bit lighter, a couple little spots on the top left of these guys, right around the eyes, which is scary because I don't normally do this, and I'm really scared I'm going to screw it up, but I'm going to do it anyway. I don't normally highlight like this. My hands are shaky and my eyes are not so great, but I'm doing it and it feels good. Just the tiniest amount. Just emphasizing what was already raised and didn't get as much grime. I'm just talking out loud so I don't feel as weird while I'm doing it. Just making things pop a little more gently. This is scary. Just a little bit of paint on there. Oh boy. I feel like I shouldn't be doing this, but it's working. It's working. It looks good. I am scared. I'm not going to let my head grow, but that was a little bit much, buddy. There we go. Just making things stand out a little bit more on one side. Gently. Oh my God. I did it. I did it. I can see it. So little paint, it makes like all the difference in the world. It's like the tiniest little amount of paint. Wow. And yeah, I sort of glommed a little bit over here, but not bad. Not bad, buddy. All right, are we done with that? I think we are. All right, so this may take 2 attempts, but I'm going to try to add more Berserker Bloodshade to my intestinal parts, in the hopes that it gets a little bit more contrast in there. Which brush am I gonna? Yeah, it's my glopping brush. If that doesn't cut it, then I'll actually need to darken it up a little, but I did hit the raised spots, dry brushed them with that Dawnstone. should help get a little more contrast. I hope. Get that deep, deep red in there. So you can actually see it for once while I'm doing it. There we go. I have this burgundy, but I think it's a contrast paint. I'm scared it'll be a little too heavy-handed with how much color this thing's already got. There we go. Just want that little bits that are recessed to just pop a little bit more. Looks like it's working. Who would have thunk it? Patience and multiple coats, some in-between work might actually help. Honestly, I think the biggest lesson I learned doing this stuff is just patience. I'm still not good at it, but getting better. Layer washing these guts. It's okay if they look gloopy, they're guts. They're supposed to look gloopy. Paratroopers are supposed to be surrounded. There you go. Just finding all these places where a little bit more color and texture would work is a lot of fun. This thing, man, this thing was, I gotta be super careful around that. It was scary, streaking griming this thing. It changed everything, but man, was it potent. Man, in the moment, did it have all the makings of like, did I just break this whole thing? Did I just burn this model to the ground? But it didn't. It all worked out. Now I really like it. Now I gotta make sure that I don't turn into someone who just streaking grimes everything. I don't know. If it makes me happy, it's probably fine. But I don't know, with great power comes great irresponsibility. I used typhus corrosion once, and now it's like I practically insist on putting it on every model I can find. I mean, true to form, one ultramarine that I did, I was like, can I rust this guy up? This guy could use some rust, right? He's got too many serfs helping him out. He doesn't need rust. Probably won't tolerate it. Do it out of spite. Make a whole Emperor's Children 2,000 point army. Just make them all rusty. Watch a bunch of lore heads just be like, what is your problem? Problem. It's my terrible sense of humor. All right. So look around this thing. This guy with a couple yellow bottles. Because yellow is safe too. Have some tea. Have a puff. Check my stats. And we'll paint some yellow on. Perfect. All right. Here we go. So I've never screwed up painting things yellow. Such a good yellow, though. Very nice. Very nice. Little dab of water in there. All right, this is a pretty big bottle. Oh yeah, that pops nicely. Go with your bright colors, Gus. Gus, Biologus. There we go. Get in there. There it is. Drawing flies with my mouth wide open. There we go. Just gentle. And the edges do matter, but not much, because I'm going to go over those with brown. Get all those straps, as I said before. I'm being careful, but I'm not being anal retentive about it. I'm just trying to make my future life a little easier. It's okay if it's not simple. I need something yellow on the other side. Maybe two things. Maybe two things. That yellow is like essential for making things all kinds of shiny. That yellow more than anything else to draw the eye. Make sure I'm hitting the same bottle on both sides. There we go. Just getting in there with enough. I'm liking this camera setup a little bit more, but I think what I'm going to do is zoom it in a little bit. I feel a lot more comfortable where I'm sitting, where the camera goes, as opposed to the last two ways I had it set up. Hopefully that's not too boring to you. It's interesting to me. And now I think I can actually zoom a little bit more. The other thing that I'm finding is that by working on two differently sized models in the same shoot, because of depth of field, I don't think it's going to be all that easy to have them both in focus without doing a bunch of shenanigans. So I got to think about that in the future. Maybe we don't do Biologus at the same time we do Miasmic Malignifier. Maybe in the future we do. But for now, you're stuck with it. There we go. Beautiful yellow. And I may go over this yellow one more time with, I don't remember what it's called, but I have a contrast paint that's even brighter yellow. We got better yellow back at home. All right, just a shiny little dab of it thick. I am getting near that blue, so I don't want it to run at all. Yeah, there you go. There you go, yellow bottle. So you can start to see, you know, we've got some color working around. That white will get some sepia on it. I think we are moving very swiftly over to the bright stuff. And that may be the last thing that I do for this evening. Let's see. I don't want to hit any washes on it. The paint being still pretty wet. Tesseract Glow, my old friend. Hit several bottles with this, and that will really be a screaming color. Absolutely shocking green. It makes a statement and a bold one. It looks otherworldly, magical, kind of unmistakable in that regard. It's also very dangerous to paint with because it runs pretty quick. It's pretty loose stuff. We'll just be kind of gentle with it. Leave the brush touching. It doesn't have sort of hugs the brush while you're moving it around like that. Man, am I scared right now because I'm going right next to white. But it's okay to do more than one coat. It is okay to do more than one coat. Alright, just scooching that around. It definitely hit that skull, but it's fine. It's like two orbs that are touching each other. It's kind of hard to keep the paint from moving over. That's alright, he spills. He's a little messy. He spills sometimes. It's okay. It's just fine. Just fine. Yeah. Oh, that's totally glopped. But thankfully there is actually a physical drip right down here. There we go. Just give you a little... soak that out of there. I can hit this guy in multiple coats. Multiple coats is the way to go. You can always take more than one pass. All going to try to hit that little bottle in there. This stuff is so thin. So thin. I love the chemistry part of these paints. Even maybe especially so. Like, yeah, I get the contrast paints are thinner and they have a viscosity thing going around so the pigment can move around. That's cool. But like outside of comparing totally different types, even within the same type, different colors just have different properties to them. Thickness, slickness. Some of them need an inordinate amount of shaking, like this Tesseract Glow always does. Like I've actually used it as a yellow by just not shaking it, just letting the green stuff get to the bottom. Of course, now that I've had it for a while and not shaking it all that much, it's hard to get the green back up. That's life. Alright, and I did hit that guy. Hit that little yellow guy by accident. Oop, get you off of there. I could probably stand to have another one of these guys. Bam. Yeah, you're nice and green now too. But it gets a little glow up. I don't shut up, I grow up. And when I look at you, I throw up. That's right. That's what we've been reduced to. It's been a long week. There we go. Super shiny. It'll get more. I'll get another coat. I gotta figure out. I got a couple more bottles to do, but I'm not entirely 100% certain what I'll hit them with. These skulls will get Seraphim Sepia. That skull, I'll give that skull a wash right now. Why not? Give that boy a wash. What I am gonna do is, it's not gonna be Seraphim Sepia. I'll give him Mortarian Grime. Fitting. Yeah, I'll make that stink grenade grimy. Or that blue was like this amazing, gorgeous color. Mortarian Grime is just like, just depressing. It's like the color of depression. That doesn't do anything to that guy. It's like such a, it's too thin. It doesn't do anything to him. Brings out no texture. It's like, what if you just wanted to add 1% diluted brown to something? Well, let me tell you, friends, Mortarian Grime will do that. It added no texture whatsoever to that. It's like I didn't even touch it. It's like I farted on it, and that was it. There you go. Sorry about that. It's gross humor. You know what? You know what? I wish I could grime that guy, but I'm not gonna. Really did nothing. All right. Black to the rescue. I don't need a ton of it, just a little drop. I could have Gilliman fleshed that thing. I could have. I may still just do a targeted insertion of, yeah, some black to just get in the cracks there. So I can actually make out his poor little face. I'm being super surgical about this. Just dabbing and touching. Maybe that's the true use of Mortarian Grime, is you hit it first just to wet the model. And now as I just touch, the pigment from this black Viejo wash is actually finding its right place because the whole model's wet. It's just to wet the model. That's what Mortarian Grime's for. There we go. There we go. Just a little bit more. Famous last words. Yeah, buddy, I think you're gonna get a contrast on you at some point. Anywho, I'll set that guy back aside. I'll attack Gus the Biologus Putrifier in earnest another time. Close this thing up here. It's been a good ride though. Got a lot done tonight. Still have the base to do at some point, but I did take the bells off. You know, that's how this guy's looking. Pretty darn creepy. Lots of zits, lots of boils. I got some more boils to get to another time. The flies are now sticking out pretty nicely. If I'm gentle, I can hang these bells on all these little hooks. This would be a fun model to put on the board. I do need to floss these holes so that the bells stay on better. This bells. It'd be so funny if each hook was supposed to have a specific bell for it. Bell or sensor. Maybe they do. You could technically... Oh, you could chain them. Look at this. That's OP. Could chain them. I'm not gonna. Anyway, the bells hang on. Merry Christmas, Christmas tree. Let's see if I can tilt it without everything coming off of it. Look at that. How pleasant. My dread piece of infiltrating terrain smokestack. Boy, am I tired. You probably hear it in my voice. Well, it's a good session. I feel like this guy's in very good shape. Put him in. Where am I going to put him? Put him in a decent spot. You can get the pedestal now, bud. Scooch the pedestal over. Yeah, I got to do a little photo shoot with this thing in a bit. Night Tyrant. Look at that. And I can spin it up. See how far this cable goes. That's about as far as it's going to go. Anyway, I'm pleased. Fun session. Thanks for stopping in and checking stuff out. We'll see you